Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unscripted with the Champagne Devo, aka Lulu. And I am back because I know that the first part I left was a little, well, I didn't leave everybody on a cliffhanger, but I just felt like giving you a little bit of air to kind of take everything in. And today I'm gonna dissect kind of everything that I discussed, like pretty much I know that when I was pretty much here last week, we discussed the book signing I went to in April. We had a brunch in May. Oh boy, we talked about my time at NBC. So, well, not really time. I think I was talking about who I met and, stuff like that. So, this specific episode, I'm going to cover all the topics I just said, including two more. And I'm actually going to start from the beginning and then get to the juicy part at the end. So here we go. So, again, like I said, last time we spoke, we were talking about the book. Now, I know I really didn't get too into it, but one of the DMs I kept getting was, "What do you mean by every time you go to an event, um, like you have to leave with something?" And I was like, it's not like I have to go there and do anything. It's just that I feel like, not even just today, in general, when I started my career and wanting to be in entertainment and everything, I was like, you have to network. You have to go out. You have to speak to people. You have to let them know, like who you are, what you're about, what you're doing. I mean, networking is key in this business. So for me, it was like you should always go to wherever you're going and have some kind of takeaway. Even if you're not the person that wants to infuse yourself with other people, on a grander scale, then you can always be the person that just shows up to the event and just socializes and meets a couple of people and, I don't know, promote your business, promote a podcast you have, promote, I don't know, a movie you might be doing, whatever the case may be. And I wanted to just kind of clarify that quickly because I know that as I was telling the story and I wanted to get more into it, in April when I went to the book signing, I kept telling my partner, I was like, I have to go. I was like, I have to go because I have this connection with with Michael Blanco's wife. I said, and mind you, well, I didn't just move to Florida, but I've been in Florida for, it's going to be 3 years. So I was like, I didn't watch Love and Hip Hop Miami. Sorry for anyone that's listened and is appalled by it, but I never watched any shows that were based in Miami because being from New York, it was like, yeah, you go to Florida for fun and da 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 da. But like Love and Hip Hop New York is such a big difference. Well, when it was on the air, it was such a big different, a totally different type of show compared to Miami. Especially because of I think number one, because of the year gaps, and number two, which we'll get into later, maybe even another episode, how much TV has changed and how much is expected of you. And I would know because I have my own damn experience and my own stories. So that's going to have to be for another time. But I wanted to start off and clarify that because like I said prior, I was so excited to go. And I remember seeing Cartel Crew and I had never seen it before. I mean, I had heard of it, but I never seen it. And I want to say it was one of my sisters that said it was really, really good, whatever, whatever. And I said, okay, I'm going to watch it. And by the time I chose to watch it, it was already off the air. But I think it was on Paramount for a while, if I remember correctly. But I ended up watching the series. And I remember watching not just them as a couple, because I liked a lot of the people that were on, I didn't think that the show was great. I didn't think it was a bad show. It got canceled for whatever reason, but that's a VH1 problem. But honestly, it was just one of those shows that even though I wasn't part of that specific part of life, but it was like, okay, but his wife and I are cut from the same cloth. We have certain stories that we could sit over a glass of wine and really be like, okay. So even though I really wanted to read his book and I educated myself on his life, not because I want, I wanted to go there with any agenda, but I was like, I like to, I was always taught you don't go to have a conversation with someone, especially someone who's in the limelight and you don't know them. That would be like going to a basketball game, when Michael Jordan was playing and not know any of his stats. So I was like, let me try to familiarize myself with the story and whatever. And the book, by the way, if no one has picked it up, you should, because the book is not just because I know them, but because the book actually tells the story of his life through his eyes. I think someone who I'm a reader, but I'm a reader like I love autobiographies. I love knowing about people's lives. Like I've read Tony Braxton's book. I've read oh boy, Mariah Carey's book. Now Michael Blanco's book. I mean, there's so many. The list could go on. And once I got there and got the book and the really truthfully, when I got there, I know I'm sidetracking. I'm trying to put the pieces all together all in one. And when I got there, I just remember like her and I just kept like looking at each other and I kept saying, I'm gonna just ask. I was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna be like, can I get a picture with you? Because if I don't get anything out, if I can't explain my connection and how I feel the way I do, at least I could say I walked away with a picture for myself in my own memory. But it went the total opposite way. We connected on so many levels, all of us together. A lot of their friends were there. A lot of people came out and showed them love. So I really wish them as a family and just both together the best success, because when you meet people in the business, sometimes they're super nice, sometimes they can be stuck up. And I would know, besides working at a major broadcasting channel, I went to so many events in New York before coming out here. I'd go to Jersey, um, because a lot of the Jersey housewives, which stay with me here because that's going to be a good story too. And, it made me leave that night and I was like, oh God, now I really have to go above and I really have to go in overdrive and it wasn't just an event about the book. It was just so much I know I said prior that it was empowerment, but it is empowerment. People who really want others to succeed in the same room root for each other, and that's what I walked away with besides anything else. So that really made me happy. Now here comes a whole month later. Well, not a month later. I think it was the middle of April, and then or the beginning of April, and then right at the first weekend of May, it was the Boss Brunch. And first, I know before I shouted her out, but I want to thank Kaylani for even because I really wasn't supposed to attend it. I was so busy, I had a lot going on, and she was like, "You have to come, you have to come," and I made it my business to attend, and I highly recommend if anyone or any women, I should say, or anyone for that matter, is interested in going to an event like that, I would follow her. Go to my Instagram and you'll find her. I'll even find out the information. I'll start putting it on my podcast so people can follow. Um, and when I attended, there was so many women that had forget about their companies that they owned, the speakers that were there, the amount of I'm trying to find the like just giving each other knowledge, just the extension and bridges that were created. Even if you just bought something from them and you had a 5-minute conversation, you still participated in exactly what the event was for. So it was really an event that kind of changed and snowballed my course with everything, because I was like, oh God, now I'm really in. I was like, now I have to put 150% into everything. And I really am thankful for them, because even for my own friends that were there, because the truth is I'm not that person that ever looks for like clout or anything. I am my own clout. I'm like, I've been that way since I was born. I don't need anybody else to fill that void for me. But as a friend and someone is in the industry, I'm like, I'm going to support, I mean, I'm going for the event for myself, of course, but of course I'm going to go and support my friends. Marie was at this event and she had no idea, because I mean, we have each other's number. I could have called her and said, hey, I'm here, where are you? I didn't do that. I just sat down and One of her lawyer was there, who was also another speaker, who she's the best. And we just were there waiting for her, and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm glad you came." She was like, "Lulu's here," and it was the best exchange that I had ever had with anyone, because it was like, listen, I came because I wanted to see what this event was about, and being a true New Yorker and being down here in Miami, I was like, I want to meet everyone that's out here. Not because, listen, like I said earlier, networking is everything. When you have a makeup line, if I have a constant podcast I'm working on, I have all these projects. So in my mind, I'm like, you have to network. No matter where you are, you can be in Wisconsin and still have to do it. It's a part of life. If you have a job, you have to you network every day. It's a part of life. Um, and that was a huge takeaway for me. And just to be able to, like I said, sitting there, and Marie actually came with her own booth. She had her own cosmetics, which is Mia Monroe. And we also, well, I mean, I sat with her and helped her, of course, without hesitation, because that's what friends do. And she also came with her husband's book for everyone to purchase. And there were hundreds of booths. I mean, one of my friends, Iris, she has her own, she does facials. One of the nurses that works with her, they have a wellness thing together. Pamela, she's a nurse, and she does all the drips and everything. Because when we got there, it was so like, I mean, of course, it was a brunch. We had food, we had everything. But all of a sudden, I don't know if it was the heat, but all of a sudden we were all dying. So, uh, Marie ended up getting a treatment, an IV treatment. And, that was just one example of a certain amount of people that I have met, and what they were doing, and how much, and to see how much these women have so much confidence and belief in what they're doing. It makes you realize that the sky is the limit. You can do anything you want to do, as long as you block out the outside noise. Make it, live for yourself. Be yourself. Be your happiness. Whatever works for you. Find it, keep it, and keep going with it. And it was just one of the greatest friggin' events ever. So I look forward to the next one, and hopefully soon, in the next couple podcasts, I have a couple of guests that are coming, and I can't say much now, but I know that you guys will be happy about it later on. On to the next topic. In my last episode, we were talking a little bit about NBC. And if you go to the beginning of my podcast, my best friend had interviewed me, and she was asking me questions. And one of the reasons I wanted her to do that was because the last time I had a podcast, if I have old listeners on here, then they'll remember I had an old podcast called Tune In with Poppy. And at the time, I had already done TV. I had already done a million and one things. So for me, it was like, why not do it? But it was during COVID and stuff like that. So the momentum for it just died. So I wanted to reintroduce myself and make people see that, what, there's a lot more to me than just what you see on social media. Just because I know all these public figures and everything doesn't mean anything. I'm like, I still have my own things, my own aspirations in life, things I want to accomplish. So I made it my business to not only reintroduce myself, but to also just cover the reasonings and why and how I got here. And NBC was one of the biggest parts of my podcast, because I ended up in law enforcement afterwards for about almost 4 years. So when you go from NBC to another venture, it was like a whole big cloudburst. I mean, not in a bad way. Both were a great experience when I did them. But at NBC, for me, it really like created. I wouldn't say created, because no, I mean, my personality has always been me, but it just made me realize how to be more comfortable with me, and I was able to break out. I mean, if you listen to the first episode, I talk about Paula Patton, which is Robin Thicke's ex-wife, and I always mention her in a lot of my stories, because I was a security coordinator when I was working at NBC. So a lot of times I was usually at a desk or I was walking around. So if I seen anybody, I was like, I mean, I've met Tony Braxton, I've met Tracy Braxton, may she rest in peace. The whole Braxton family I've met before. Nene Leakes, Teresa Giudice. Um, oh boy, I mean, from Bravo Universe all the way over. I've met Melissa McCarthy. I would say two of the biggest people that I met that really moves me, like I just said prior, was Paula Patton and Melissa McCarthy. And I am going to tell those two stories right now. So I don't remember the time frames specifically, but when I met Paula Patton, I remember I don't know if she was coming in for an interview or a new movie that she had just done, but if you go to 30 Rock in New York, each and every person that's there, you have to check in, security escorts you, and it's a whole to do. And she just made contact with me and she was like, oh my God. And you would have thought we had known each other for 20 years and, or like I was her nephew or something. And I remember her saying something along the lines that she had had coffee. So she was super like caffeinated and wired. But I remember like being so happy because I was like, it's Paula Patton. I was like, this is a woman that's been in some of the greatest movies I've ever saw. And besides movies, I remember the first time I saw her was, if people don't know this, she was on Law and Order as a prosecutor. So I was like, this is one of my favorite people. I was so happy to meet her. And I wouldn't say we just got along. She was the greatest energy I think I had ever dealt with at that age of my life. I was like, can I get a picture? She was like, yes. She was like, let's go, let's go. That we ended up taking a picture directly in front of all the cameras and everything. I said, oh my God, if these bosses yell at me, I'm screwed. But I didn't care. When I got there, I was like, listen, everybody has a dream. And I went to work and I was always on time. I did the best I could do. So, that was one memory that always stood with me. I felt like I was like, you know, and we were there talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. I mean, I could have just rambled with her for hours. Now comes, I want to say maybe it was in the same month. I don't recall right now, but I can tell you that when I met Melissa McCarthy, she walked in and we used to have, I don't know about now, but it used to be 4 desks because there were like four officers sitting, like security officers that would sit there, or so security at the desk. And she walked in and I was like, I think my mouth must have been open or whatever because I couldn't believe that she was in front of me. And I want to say she was either going on Jimmy Fallon or maybe SNL. I don't remember, but it was one of those shows. And she made me laugh so much. And I asked her, I said, can I get a picture with you? She said, of course. Before I could get a picture with her, security came in and she was in a rush. She was running. And I was like, I guess I'll write you on Twitter and hope you write back. And she was like, of course. She's like, write me on Twitter. I'll try to fit you in with, I guess. She said something really funny and cute. And I remember saying to myself, what a blessing it is that you work at a job that you could meet all these people, that some of them could be just someone in a movie that you love or whatever. Some of them are influential. There were so many, which the biggest one, now we're down to the last two topics. And the reason I say the last two is because these are topics that are really hot right now. And I had to speak on them. And right now is the perfect time to address it because I know that I'm going to get a little fire for it. I don't care. Let's go back 2 seconds. So we were talking about my NBC experience. One of the top stories, I wouldn't say one of the top story was, I remember that here in Florida, in Miami, there was a shooting with the LGBT community. Yeah, I know it's a lot longer. I don't know the whole thing. Don't get mad at me. And it was a devastating shoot. And she had just came out with that record, Love Make the World Go Around. And she performed it on the Today Show. I remember getting to work at, I think it was 7 a.m. and they said to me, Jennifer Lopez is going to perform. And in the first episode, if you guys go back, I mentioned one of my uncles because he used to work there with me. And I remember texting him and saying, Jennifer Lopez is in the building. I'm going. I was like, I don't care if I go for a bathroom break and come back. I have to meet I have to see her. I was like, I know I'm not gonna meet her. There's a million, she probably has an entourage. I was like, but if I could just see her closer than anybody else has ever seen her, I'm like, it'll make me the happiest person in the world. And I still have the picture. I didn't get to take a picture with her, but I have a picture of her up close performing Love Makes the World Go Round. And right after the performance, I was in the office singing, like just songs of hers because I was so excited from what I saw. I was like, even if you were broke, my love don't fall. I was just singing. I was so happy. And then when I looked up, because I was at my desk and I started singing, but I must have been typing or looking at my computer. And when I got back and I looked up, it was Benny Medina. And he was like, "Whoa, look at your little singer." He goes, you should get a demo together." And I was like, "This guy must be joking." I'm like, I will drop to the floor because of it. And actually, she was there also because I guess I could talk about it now because he asked me to throw some papers in the garbage. They never made it to the garbage because I was being Wendy Williams. I was like, I want to know what this is. And it was a lot of like pre stuff for when she was doing her All I Have or preparing for her residency in Las Vegas. And I was like, oh boy, like, it was just so exciting for me. And the reason I bring this up is because one of the questions that I always get asked. As well, when I was younger, not now, because I always wanted to get into music. I never really did. Maybe one day, but I just never did. And if I did, I was in the studio with like my sister working. It wasn't just, like whatever records were done by me are sealed in an email and they're for me to hear. But one of the things that's been driving me nuts on social media is the constant J Lo and Ben Affleck thing I keep saying. Like I feel like because I grew up in that era. Like I am not a Gen Z, Gen X, whatever these people are, and I'm like 20 years ago, almost is what I mean. She's saying 20 years ago. I'm like, has it really been 20 years? I don't know. I'm starting to show my age, but I'm like, when that was going on, when Geely came out and all that, I'm like, that was when paparazzi followed you with cameras. My mom used to buy In Touch Weekly, People. I mean, that's when you had 5, 6 magazines. Between my mom and my godmother, they were like stacks of Bibles. Like they were just. That was the time that it all occurred. And people who know me, I've always said, I'm Puerto Rican and I also have a little bit of Italian in me, but primarily my blood runs Spanish. So I tell them, listen, I'm not from Cuba or Colombia, and no disrespect to any of my Latinos, but I was like, look, I like to represent my culture. I was like, and a lot of the old time singers, I'm like, don't make records anymore. If you're Puerto Rican and you still listen to La India or I don't know, Tito Puente, and anybody that's old school. I've never said that they couldn't sing, but I was like, growing up, I couldn't, how do I put, like, I loved Selena. Besides the movie, I loved her all the time. I have an aunt that I used to, every time she would babysit me, I would sing the songs from the beginning to the end. And as I got older, I said to myself, I love Selena. I was like, are you kidding me? There will never be anyone like her. And to this day, anybody could come out with that style. They won't trump her if they tried. But, I was like, but I'm not Mexican. I was like, no shade. I was like, but I'm not, so if I want to be a public figure or someone in this industry, who is somebody that's from my culture that I could look up to? And I would always say, influentially, it was always Mark Anthony, Jennifer Lopez. If I wanted to like, anybody else, I could give you names. Like I mean, influential. Like I love Cher. I think Cher is the epitome. She's who I want to be when I'm 80. I mean, like, and I don't mean that in a disrespect. Like she is ageless to me, but I mean, like she just the way she lives her life and what she stands for and how those were people that were influential to me. And most importantly, my most influences obviously were my parents, but let's go backwards because I'm sidetracking. Um, it got me so upset because I have people who know me know I love Jennifer and I have all her albums. I have every single, but I always said to people, I don't think it's a singing thing for me. It's a, you know, today's day and age, they'll say, "Oh, Ice Spice from the Bronx." First off, don't give me Ice Spice as somebody that you want to have, that you want to look up to. I mean, when I was growing up, you had Remy Ma, you had Fat Joe, you had Jennifer Lopez. I mean, these were people that were from the Bronx and were a staple in the Bronx. Not to mention Big Pun, may he rest in peace. So I'm like, I don't fit in that category to sit with people who are going to go on social media not only to talk about a woman's marriage that you're not even behind closed doors to view. Number one, I don't care how many times somebody's been married. Listen, I've never been married, but I have more rings than LeBron. So it doesn't matter what a person, and that was, it got me so hot to see it all over my Instagram. Not to mention, um, like when her album came out, I remember my sister called me and she said, "Did you see the movie and did you hear the album?" And I said, "Of course I did." I said, "I think it's her best album to date." And I said, "Understand me, when you're someone who, even if I'm not a singer out in the world, you know my grandfather performed, was a big musician. My mother was a musician. Like, I grew up like the Braxtons. I sang for myself. So I'm like, listen, I know what it is to be a little afraid of your voice and to see what it can and what it can't do." But it's really sad, when people, because I've heard the album and I took it a different way. I mean, of course, obviously, you can tell that there's stories about her love life and whatever, but there's a record on there that's called Broken Like Me. And I resonated with it so much because I was like, she's not talking about this man. She's talking about the fact that she's been in 17 situations where she didn't realize that she was wrong. She didn't realize that she needed to maybe look at herself. And when I heard it, I said, "Geez, Christ," I said, "I feel like she's talking to me." I was like, I never really looked at myself in certain situations where I should have gotten up and walked away, or in situations where I should have had more restraint than coming off a different way. So, you know, I got so frustrated by it, and the way, and the people that are on social media today and their responses to people, it's the same way. To me, it's like 20 years ago, except these kids are trying to, like, I don't know if they want to like take all the legends out. I mean, Mariah Carey was just in an interview where she was like, "You can't even make a classic anymore because music is like food." And I honestly, I agree with her. A lot of times I hear all this new sound and I'm like, when is little Kim gonna come out of her shell? And I understand there's people who are like, "Oh, Biggie go far." I don't care. Listen, in her time, there was no one that could touch her. So I'm like, when is she gonna come out of her shell and put these girls back to bed? Like, I was like, listen, some of these kids have a lot to say about music when you don't even know what music is. Half the time, in today's day and age, you say, "Oh, have you ever heard of Barbara Streisand?" And they look at you like, "Barbara who?" You're going to tell me that Nicki Minaj is your favorite singer, but she couldn't touch a 9-foot pole with Barbara Streisand. And that's not me being shady. I like Nicki Minaj, but one thing about me is I keep it a buck, being someone who grew up with that kind of music and having the kind of people that, I mean, my grandfather would play his guitar and tell me, "Okay, sing." So I was like, this is stuff you get trained in if you're a part of a musical family. So I was like, I don't understand how people could be so judgment. This is a woman who's had a career for 30 something years. I mean, nobody talks about half the artists that are out now, so I don't know. It just didn't sit well. And one of the things, the reason I brought it up is because I was like, listen, I think people need to start connecting with each other again. That's one of the main reasons I chose to do this podcast, because people meet me and they're like, "You have such a good energy. You're always pleasant, you're always nice." And I'm like, because that's genuinely who I am. I don't have a mean bone in my body unless you poke the bear. So for me, it was like, we have to start connecting. We have to start dealing with our emotions. These kids are more violent these days. They're more keeping things in, and even down to, I was just telling my partner not even 2 days ago, I was like, "Honey," I was like, "when you and I met, at least courtship is something that still exists. I mean, it's very far and few, but it's like not everything is about a woman's body. Like that, even for me, being who I am, it didn't matter. But like I was like, listen, I dated women when I was younger, and back then it was apple bottom jeans, and nobody thought about how big the girls' boobs were. Pardon my French, as opposed to now, where it's like, oh, if she don't have fatty, and I'm like, grow up. I'm like, she's not gonna have the fatty forever. No amount of plastic surgery is going to give her that. And if you're a real man at the end of the day, you want, you see past that, you know? And I always thank having, both my parents to be that example for me. But it's just like when I go on social media, and the craziest part is I don't respond to things, but I was so mad that somebody made a comment on like one of those fan pages, and I actually responded. And I was like, half of you people are responding to this woman because you don't like that, I guess she's married and has a wonderful life. That's fine. I go, but beyond that, if you don't like the way somebody sings, just don't buy the damn album. Don't listen to them. But to go on and say that, and then your favorite singer is, I don't know, Ducky, like, okay, or Little Dicky is your favorite performer, like Little Dicky is an ass. Like maybe you should start, broadening your horizons when it comes to music. And not only that, I tell people I grew up with women in my house. I have more sisters. So for me, it was like a woman that created an entrepreneurial way for Latina women to open up businesses. A woman who has really put Puerto Rico, on a better, because to me, it's like whoever puts that out there, especially for your culture, because I tell people it's sometimes it's hard to reference. Sometimes I call my Puerto Rico. I'm like, it's not a country and it's not a state. It's a commonwealth. I go, so but yet when something happens, I go, they don't really get the big financial aspect of it, but it's people like her and Mark Anthony and Bad Bunny, you know, and well, all those people collectively now that are putting into it. So I'm like, no matter whether they're good or bad, unless they're going to jail, committing a crime or something like that, you should be in full defense mode. I'm a firm believer. It's just like if you're from, no pun, but if you're in Jamaica and somebody talks bad about Bob Marley, shots are fired. Like you cannot go to Jamaica and talk about Bob Marley, like So for me, it was just important to have that conversation. I know I'm going a little, but it really got me hot. And I was like, this is a woman that really helped me find myself. And not just with music, but, there were certain parts of my life. Like, I don't always think about the song and the lyricism and the word, but, it was like, this is a Puerto Rican woman that broke down a wall, that broke down a wall and has even played with actors and actresses that has done things that are like that mind boggle me because that's my era. Being born in the 90s, I was like, that's our come up. The same way you go to Mexico and they say, okay, well, Selena's our come up. Okay, well, Jennifer Lopez in my time, that was our come up. So, you know, I just feel like people don't give her flowers, and it's about time. And an award doesn't do it either, because if people want to get collective because they get on awards too, I'm like, the woman is Grammy nominated too. An award doesn't give you anything. It's a congratulatory thing. It's not fulfilling. When somebody pays you a compliment, that's fulfilling. When somebody wants to give you words of wisdom, that's fulfilling. But being an asshole is just being an asshole. So for all you people out there that want to be that way, then this is not a podcast for you because we're going to go to war. Um, and not because I think I should be defensive over it, but I'm like, how many people in this world would give just to be in that world and sing and carry. So, I'm like, I don't even care if it's Taylor Swift, and I'm not even a fan of Taylor Swift. Not because I don't like her. I don't like her. I just don't like her music. And her music is not my thing. But I'm like, but they still give her flowers. God forbid somebody goes and says anything about them, then it becomes World War III, and I'm like, people are allowed to like other people. That's a part of life. We don't all go into one world and say, okay, I have to like you. Like, no, if I don't like you, I don't like you. But I'm sidetracking. That was my little story about JLo, and I wanted to share it. My last piece for today is so funny. On my Instagram, I posted a picture of a housewife, and it was blocked off and everything. And the reason I did that is because I, number one, wanted to see if anybody knew who I was talking about. But secondly, is because the new season of Jersey just started. And I've worked with so many different housewives that I was like, I know there's a billion podcasts that talk about just the episodes, but I'm like, I've done makeup for these people. I've gone to events and sat for hours with them. Now I'm not gonna divulge every single thing, but there's certain things that I really never said even in my old podcasts that I feel it needs to be said now. And when I posted the picture, somebody said to me, "Is that Danielle Staub?" And I was like, damn, they got it on the head. And the reason I had started posting her is because, I think what's happening right now in Jersey is kind of just all over the place. I just started watching it. I mean, well, I always watched the show, really all of them, but not to the extent the way people think. Because I'm like, if you're doing the person's makeup, you know what's going to happen, or if something already happened, because they're not going to give you all the tea, but you may figure out who's not talking to who's fighting with who, or whatever the case may be, because tea time is tea time. And it made me realize that I know all of them, but quite frankly, I don't know. I feel like Jersey has to go back to its roots. Because I watched the first, I think it's the first three episodes as of this week. I think it's the third episode or the fourth, something like that. But, it's not, they're not that far in yet. It just started. And, you know, uh, not just my sisters, but a lot of people, when they go on social media, they always ask me questions. And I'm like, listen, one of the first people that I ever did makeup for, actually the first person I ever did makeup for, period, on that grand scale, was Teresa Giudice. And her friend Jen at the time had a hair salon. And I actually don't remember how her and I don't think we exchanged numbers. Well, actually, rewind. I went it was Jenny Tipp's salon, and I went to get my hair done, and Teresa was there. So, and I was, just like, oh my God, Teresa Giudice is here. So, and I was actually coming back from my friend Karen Gravano. She had a restaurant in Jersey at the time, Pizza Nostra. And I don't know if I was coming from Pizza Nostra or if I was going afterwards. I don't remember, but I know I ended up there at some point. Um, and anyway, long story short, I greet Teresa. How are you? We've met each other at other prior events, that will for Bravo. And she, hi, honey, how are you? And I was like, listen, I know you have a million people that'll do your makeup. I was like, I just give me one chance. I was like, you don't have to pay me. I was like, I just want to have something that I can promote and so on and so forth. And I think I was like 19 or 20. So she said, yeah, honey, of course. We exchanged numbers on the spot. She sent me her address and she goes, you just let me know when. We'll figure out a day and you come and you do it. And I said, okay. I would say not even a month later, I gave her a call and she goes, you know what? She goes, I think it was Audriana. I don't know if Audriana had a game. I don't know if somebody had a game or she was going to me because she was talking to her brother at the time. And they were all going to meet up to go to some game. Anyway, long story short, I do her makeup. And this at the time was actually season 8 because I actually, like I said, I attended all the events. So I met pretty much all of them. Um, and I remember her being really close at the time to Danielle Staub. And I was like, something, when the show first started, I not gonna lie, I liked all of them. Like because when you're younger, the show started in I think what 08 or 09. I was a teen, so I liked any of them. I was just like, ooh, drama. It was like watching a novella on the house, but it just it made me realize, like, I wanted to go more. I wanted to go more. Like, I wanted to extend it more. It's like, I want to meet everybody. I want to, and she was my start. And I kind of tell people now, I'm like, I cannot believe the amount of times that I've met her that she would be painted the way that she's being painted. But again, like I said, I know them all. I even know her sister-in-law, and her sister-in-law is a ball. I know her sisters. Her sisters are a ball. Um, so that's why I just said, even with Jennifer Lopez just prior, I was like, "So you see, we're not behind the closed door, so we don't know. Of course, the cameras will share and they share and they share, but that closed conversation when Bravo's executives and producers leave the door, you don't know what's said unless you're gonna be a specific person that picks up the phone to stir the pot when it doesn't need to be stirred. And now that I say that, I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger right here because I didn't realize we're so in, and you're going to have to tune in next week for my part story on RHONJ. Because if I say it now, you'll be here for an hour and a half. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you come back and listen again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to it. Don't forget to leave me a comment or review. And don't forget to have a great weekend and stay blessed. Thank you. Bye.